We are, without a shadow of a doubt, entering into a completely new chapter. Welcome to this week's StarotTalk, where we will be discussing the transits from February the 8th through to the 14th. There are more big shifts happening in the sky, and we start off on Sunday with Venus in Aquario making a square to Uranus in Tauro. And with Venus's time in Aquario, there might be this sense of heightened detachment or a little bit more aloofness or coldness in our relationships, in our financial dealings, in our interpersonal matters. And with this square to Uranus in Tauro, there could be a bit of a destabilization happening from those Venusian Aquarian energies, rippling into our comforts and our sense of stability in life. In whatever houses these fall in your chart, you'll likely feel that there might be a moment of tension that could lead to major breakthroughs or even an epiphany about something that is the result of a situation that got disrupted or shaken up. It's a very jolting departure for Venus here, as this is her last aspect in Aquario before she goes into Pisces. And Venus adores being in Pisces. Venus is exalted here. So expect that everything having to do with those Venusian themes, beauty, love, women, relationships, finances, money, just material pleasures, and our sense for aesthetics will be getting a significant boost since Venus in Pisces is essentially operating in her most decadent, her most fantastical and whimsical and beautiful self. She gets to really adorn herself with the abundance that is bestowed by Pisces with Jupiter ruling the sign, and really encourages us to romanticize every aspect of our life, especially whatever house Pisces falls in for you. On a much more personal level, get ready to just relate in a very compassionate way to others. We're going from Aquarius's aloof, kind of detached sort of personality to Pisces, which is very much staring into your soul, wanting to empathize with you. It's very compassionate. It is very sensitive, and not sensitive in the sense that it's going to break down crying any moment now, though that is not off the table, but sensitive in the sense that it is very attuned to the subtle changes that are happening in an energetic exchange. And that is a very powerful skill to have, but it can also be very overwhelming. Venus here is absolutely going to be connected to those more etheric exchanges. And with Mercury here and Saturn, it's starting off on a little bit of a wet heavy blanket kind of vibe, but Saturn is about to do something. And so this Pisces section of our chart is absolutely going to undergo a bit of a restoration or a renewal or a makeover, especially as we get into the astrology for Wednesday. The 11th, Mercury enters shadow. Mercury is going to enter shadow at 8 degrees of Pisces, and Mercury is already not at its strongest in Pisces in the sense that it doesn't do its Mercury typical to-do list as well as it would like to. However, this creates a lot of space for Mercury to get creative and to explore other avenues of connection and communication. Where Mercury is usually extremely savvy with to-do lists and spreadsheets and straight, direct, forward analytical communication, in Pisces, it might have to paint the feeling out. It might have to sing it or make a poem about it. It's going to be a little bit psychic probably as well, where usually our faculties become a bit more, again, sensitive and attuned to the subtle energy dynamics that are happening constantly. And even if you're not in active conversation with someone, maybe you're not even in the same room, our energy fields are constantly exchanging information with the people that are in our lives. So this is where it starts to get very fun and psychic and playful. But all of that aside, with Mercury entering shadow at 8 degrees, that lets us know that whatever conversations, contracts, or dealings that take place on this day, we will be coming back to. Since when Mercury stations retrograde and eventually comes back to this degree, we're going to be doubling down or correcting something in this area of our chart. So if you have 8 degrees in any of the mutable signs, be it Pisces, Sagittarius, Virgo, Gemini, then you will feel this very acutely, or if you even have an ascendant in one of those signs. More than anything, this is going to be a good day to just start to pay attention to what messages you're receiving, both on this physical plane, but also from the heavens, from the divine, from your dreams as well. Do not ever underestimate your dreams, especially when any of the planets are in Pisces. And there's a few other signs that I would very directly correlate with dreams here, but especially on this day. Mercury retrogrades, like any other retrograde, gets a really bad rep, but quite frankly, they're necessary. They help us fix any mistakes that might have been very grave down the line. And they are moments of opportunity where we can learn from our haste and really slow down and grow and expand from a place that is hopefully coming with a lot of compassion for ourselves and for others, especially since it's happening in Pisces. So don't be so hard on yourself if you encounter something along this retrograde where you're like, dang, I shouldn't have signed that contract, or I shouldn't have said that thing, or I should have waited to have that meeting. Whatever it might be, just be very intentional about how you are in conversation with others, with community, and how you are thinking about things at this time. Pisces is a mutable sign, so allow your mind to be mutable as well. And that will allow for you to have a lot of grace in this retrograde, especially because we will have Mercury retrograding as we go into the eclipse window of the season, the first eclipse window for 2026. We're not quite there yet, but the energies are starting to align for that, with the first eclipse happening actually next week. But we are going to pause and not get too far ahead of ourselves here. We're still in the early stages of all of these energies coming together. Then on Thursday the 12th, Mercury is going to conjoin the North Node at 9 degrees of Pisces. So considering that Mercury just entered shadow and is now conjoining the mouth of the dragon, the North Node, which represents an abundance of something, an influx of something, a dramatic change that is in relation to something that we're hungry for, or just showering us with an energy that we may or may not have asked for. Mercury's conjunction here really amplifies its shadow entering station. And so whatever, again, themes or conversations are happening at this time, do not underestimate them. They're powerful. They are being highlighted for us right now, and they are significant, and they have the potential to change our life and our relationships in a very profound level. Again, we're in Pisces realm right now. So there is a lot of important imaginings happening at this time as well. Maybe imagination is really heightened at large out in the world, but also in your life, there is the opportunity to have really big, expansive ideas and to think very creatively, keeping in mind that Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer right now. It's making a trine to everything that is in Pisces. So this can be a really opportune moment for us to really express our creativity on a wider level that maybe deviates quite a bit from the norm, but is really highly attuned to what it is that we need on an emotional, etheric level. Then on Friday the 13th, Saturn returns to Aries. Friday the 13th has a lot of connotations in and of itself, and with Saturn, the planet of gloom and what is heavy and what is serious and what is karmic, entering Aries at this time feels, for lack of a better word, serendipitous in a very serious way. Saturn has already been in Aries, actually. It was here last year in the spring of 2025. So we already got a preview of what Saturn wants to do here. Saturn is officially done with its time in Pisces. So if you were having your Saturn return in Pisces, as I was around this time, then congrats. You are complete. You are done with this. If you have the moon or any other personal planets in early degrees of Aries, then congratulations. Saturn is moved here. I have Aries moon at 1 degree, so that's going to be very wonderful and interesting to observe. But again, I've already been through this. I've already seen it last year. I got a sneak peek. And so my question to you here is, what area of your life suddenly got really serious for you last year from May 25th through to the summertime that asked you to step up or that gave you more responsibility? What do you wish that you would have known before that happened? And what did you learn from it? So that you can take all of that and apply it now, because Saturn is here to stay. Saturn is not going to go back into Pisces anymore. It's officially going to go into Aries. It'll have a few retrogrades here and there. It's really going to take its time, as it tends to in each and every sign. And it's co-present Neptune. And so with Neptune here, with Saturn, there is a very heavy energy that asks us to seriously consider what leadership looks like, what leadership is and what it is not from a personal level, but on a collective level, we might be experiencing a sudden influx of confusion or delirium or blurriness in the leaders that we see on a world stage level, in themes of war, in themes of drive and action. It's almost like Saturn wants to come into Aries and lay down the ground rules, but Saturn represents experience and elders, and Aries is youthful, young, and very much wanting to do what it wants to do. And Neptune here is kind of just creating a vibe of a fog that can be very disorienting. So Saturn is going to do its best to get a hold of the situation here, but it's not going to be easy. So if you find that that is a circumstance in which you find yourself right now, that is what this influence is. And the best piece of advice that I can possibly give you is get really good at knowing when to go fast, when to slow down, when to wait. You're going to have to get really attuned to timing, because there might be a moment where it seems like it's the time to strike, but Neptune is just casting a mirage and you might be too early to the thing. And that is that interplay as well of these Aries Martian energies. And Mars rules Aries here. And so we look to Mars as well for a lot of what's going to take place. Now, here's something that I do appreciate about this. Saturn is debilitated in Aries, meaning Saturn doesn't do well here. It is in its fall. And whilst that is the case, it does get to have a little bit of support from Mars. And Mars is currently in Aquario, which is ruled by Saturn. Mars is kind of indifferent to being in Aquario, to be frank. It's an air sign. It's not its best, but it's not its worst. So they have something called mutual reception, which is when a planet is in the sign of another planet's rulership and vice versa. So they're making eye contact and they're in a sextile, which allows for the energy to flow relatively easy. It is constructive and supportive. So even in this terrain, this landscape that Saturn now finds itself in the Aries sector of our chart, it is receiving a little bit of a boost from Mars in Aquario. So Mars is inviting Saturn into its house and it's saying, hey, this is the terrain, these are the rules, you're hosting me in your house, and I'm kind of going by your rules. Neither of us are necessarily happy, but we can exchange energy about it. Now, in a sextile, that energy tends to be a little bit more constructive than debilitating. So in this moment and onwards with Saturn and Aries, we're going to have the opportunity to really take a second to learn what it is that it wants to bring into our life, what new responsibilities and what new growth lies here. Where does Saturn want to challenge us to really slow down, where maybe we want to go a little bit faster? And where can we build on our discernment? And I really think that that's going to be a huge theme as well for this moment in time with Neptune and Saturn together. This is a moment where we are all going to really hone in on our skills to discern what is real, what's not real, what feels honest, what aligns with my values and my ethics, especially with Mars being in Aquario, and Aquario being a sign that is very tech-oriented. It's ruled AI, it's ruled a lot of these recent technologies and innovations that we are developing on this moment on the planet. And so this could be a continued lesson in, is that video AI or is it real? And kind of fine-tuning our discernment, not just for the online spaces, but in person as well. So that's the week. I've already shuffled the deck to see what the card for this week is, and we have the Tower. And before you get panicked or scared or freaked out, I view the Tower as a necessary purification ritual. This is clearly a structure that needed to be so gone and done away with that the heavens smited it themselves. There are people falling and a new foundation is going to be rebuilt. Does that sound familiar to what might be happening out in the world right now? I think it does a little bit. Sometimes something has to fall away when it's no longer appropriate to the consciousness of what exists around it. And so with Saturn going into Aries, what institutions or systems or structures, both in your personal life, but out in the world, are severely outdated, are unnecessarily violent, are not constructive to growth and creativity and exemplifying the true qualities of the kind of leadership that humanity needs at this time. And as we witness these old structures, systems, institutions falling away for something new to be born, how do you show up in the aftermath of it? We absolutely are so very much hopeful that things will change, but it's deeper than what we initially see it to be. It's usually we are seeing the tip of the iceberg to a much bigger, older system. And what the Tower, this feels like a really hopeful card. What the Tower is saying here is it's not just the tip of the iceberg that's going to be redone. It's the whole thing. It's the very foundation of it. And I love that it's lightning that is striking the head of the Tower, because it feels like the universe and the heavens and the divine are kind of backing up this push for humanity and for consciousness to evolve for the greater good, for what is most in alignment with life on Earth, with animal kingdoms and the plant kingdoms and the cosmos. There is a crown that is literally falling off of this building, and we see two figures plummeting to their downfall. Take that for what you will. What roles out in the world represent kings or want to represent kings, and it's just not happening? What people in your life are meant to be leaders, but they're not leading from a place of integrity or honesty? That's not going to fly. And so with Venus going into Pisces, that is an influence that I think makes for this whole week to feel a little bit more hopeful and more compassionate, even while things are a little bit rocky. On a personal level, if you notice that your own life is undergoing major change, where you see your own personal systems falling away, or maybe you have been leading your life in a way that is not in integrity anymore, have all of the compassion and all of the grace in the world for yourself. Give yourself permission to do that, so that when you start new, when you start fresh, which is not only important, but it is necessary throughout our life. It doesn't just happen one and done. It is a constant cycle. You can build from a place where you treated yourself with love and with respect throughout every step of the process. And that might not always be easy, but we get to practice a lot. If you are interested in a one-to-one consultation with me, please check out audisolaris.net. I would love to talk stars with you and connect on a deeper level. Otherwise, I will see you next week, where we will absolutely start to talk about the energies leading up to the eclipse, the first eclipse window of 2026. Move very mindfully. Move with a lot of intention, with a lot of sovereignty and power. You've got this. We've got this. Connect with the people that you love, and sending you every bit of luck and magic and support. I can't wait to see you in the next one. And until then, cuídense.